Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today's episode is a real treat, especially for all the new parents, soon to be parents, or anyone looking for insights into early stages of childhood development. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Marisa Rodriguez, founder of Luxe Baby Custom Newborn Care, and a true expert in newborn care and sleep conditioning. With years of experience and a lifetime of wisdom that started in her childhood as the eldest of 10 siblings, Marisa has dedicated her career to transforming how families approach those crucial first months of life with their newborns. From practical sleep solutions to fostering a deep parent-child bond, Marisa brings a unique blend of knowledge, empathy, and experience to everything she does. In our conversation, we'll dive into Marisa's gentle approach to sleep conditioning, the myths and realities of sleep training, and how parents can develop healthy, intuitive habits that nurture their child's early development. If you're a parent struggling with sleepless nights, feeling overwhelmed, or just eager to soak up some expert advice, this episode is for you. So without further ado, let's welcome Marisa.
Thank you so much for having me, Samantha.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. I know sleep was something that was so overwhelming for me. So I love having sleep consultants on and experts to get out any sort of information to anyone that can use it because it is such a needed thing for people to have.
No, absolutely. It's a pretty universal thing among parents, whether you're a new parent or a new again parent, you're in the trenches of
Yeah.
this realm.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the sleep, we start each episode with our wine, and win of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So, Marisa, what is your WINE of the week?
But mine is a Mayomi.
Ooh, oh,
Yeah,
I
it's a
like that one.
Pinot. Yeah,
Yes.
I like kind of like my go-to. So just, it's just to have a little, even a few sips is just nice and relaxing sometimes.
I always say in the summers I'm a Sauvignon Blanc girl, in the winters I'm a Pinot Noir girl. So that
I
is
love it.
definitely one that I like. And what is your WHINE of the week?
Say that for me this week, I struggled to get to the gym, but I forced myself. And also it was helpful that I paid a trainer. Forced myself.
Listen, whatever you got to do.
Well, because I'm working right now with a baby and I always feel very sleep deprived. And even when I sleep, I wake up and I feel groggy. I don't have a consistency to my routine when I'm working. So that's a real struggle. So yeah, it was hard, but I
Yeah,
did it.
my husband works shift work, so not the same all the time, but like overnights, and it's so hard during those overnight weeks, especially the longer ones where he like to get to the gym. He's like, I just couldn't, he tried to put it in his schedule, so I can only imagine constantly, when you're with babies overnight and the inconsistency of the sleep. I'm sure it's
Yes.
hard.
Yes, for sure.
So what is your win of the week?
My win of the week is that despite kind of struggling with my poor sleep, I was extremely productive. I got a lot done. So I felt really accomplished. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. It feels good.
That's awesome. And I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you've successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
For me, it would be setting boundaries for myself, whether it's with friends or with clients. I realize there are certain things that when you're in a position, any position, sometimes you start feeling a little nag, like you're feeling a little awkward or uncomfortable about something, or something's starting to bother you. And instead of letting it go and letting it go, even though it's hard to bring things up sometimes, addressing them. And then you find out that it really wasn't as big a deal as it was in your head. So that is for me something that I've really gotten better at over the years. And even in recent times, I feel really strongly about and try to advocate for myself as well.
Yeah, and for yourself and also for these newborn parents, setting boundaries, it's something I feel like before I had kids that I heard of and like, yeah, you kind of needed to set boundaries with people in different ways. But then once you
Yeah.
have kids, it's a whole other ballgame really with setting boundaries. And I also feel as, I get older, it's easier to set boundaries and be more confident in your decisions, but it takes a while to get there.
Absolutely. And that's still something I think I struggle just depending on the situation, but it's gotten a lot better.
Good. Well, the Running Wine Mom, we also start with a little fitness. So you talked about that you have a trainer. What's your favorite way to stay active with your trainer or just on your own?
So I'm kind of just doing strength training 2 to 3 times a week with the trainer. But my favorite form of fitness is dance fitness. So I've been going to discovered a couple of local classes, and it's just fun. You don't have to think about it. You're not have to worry about whether you're doing something right or something wrong. You're just moving your body, and boy, it's a great workout. And you're sweating, and you're getting that heart. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
fun for me. I've always enjoyed that.
I love that. We have a dance sweat class at my gym that I love to take, and it is you just like feel like you're in your 20s again out at the club instead of in the gym sweating with other, women or men. So how does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to your understanding of the relationship between mental health and physical fitness?
So I would say, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I do these live-in jobs. They're called 24/7. It's a kind of a concierge live-in service, and those are very intense jobs. And I realized that I was just always feeling groggy, and I just needed to figure out a way to remedy that because you can't be a
Yeah.
zombie when people are relying on you. So, learning how to take care of myself. But I found that through eating a certain way, managing my diet, how I ate,
Hmm.
especially if I ate meals that were more protein based, um, and not like, just like, what's it called, like empty
Right,
carbohydrates,
right,
because the snacking, that doesn't get you anywhere. And making sure that I stayed hydrated. And even if I took a 15-minute walk around the block,
right.
or got outside in the sun, even for a short time, even though I didn't feel like it, but doing those things really helped me. Helped my mindset. It gave me clarity. And I really did have more energy. So that really helped me get through some of the jobs that I've been on. And even my most recent job, sometimes I was like, oh, I'm gonna, do that. That was so great. But then sometimes each job is different. Your schedule is different. Your break time's different. So it's not always possible, but I feel like each position I go into or travel job, I feel like, okay, I have to have a plan. If I'm following
Yeah.
this plan, I'm going to feel really good. So that has been extremely helpful and something that I'm trying to stay consistent with.
Yeah, it's so important. The planning, it's like if you think, oh, the planning's too much, but then like when you're in the moment, you're like, if I would have just planned, this actually would have been way
Yeah,
easier. And
it
you would be
really
getting
is.
what you really need too.
It's so true.
Okay, so the next part of the Running Wine Mom, we talk about parenthood. Can you tell us about your family?
Yes, I'm the eldest of 10 children, but I have one daughter myself. She just turned 27. That has been a very interesting journey. But when I'm working with new parents or new families, honestly, it all comes flooding back. I'm like, oh, I remember this or I
Hmm.
remember that. And yeah, so there's so many things that I can relate to, obviously, as a parent.
Right. And as the eldest of 10, it's like,
Yes.
so do you think having so many siblings, did that factor into the amount of children that you had, or is that something totally different?
It most certainly did factor in, Samantha, let me tell you. So, I mean, for me personally, it was never gave it a ton of thought. But, when I was a teenager, I wanted to have twins. And then I was like, what am I thinking? Because the twins came for us. My mom had twins right smack in the middle. They were number 5 and 6. So I was like, okay, rethink that. Twins is amazing for sure. I've cared for a lot of multiples, but for me, I felt like one or none. Like, I was on the fence. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So what do you think you were least prepared for in parenthood?
For me, it was definitely the postpartum period. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't something that was really discussed. And even like my mom and I never even talked about it. So I felt really lost during that time, to be honest. I even suffered from postpartum depression and I didn't even know many years later. It was like, oh, wow,
Right.
that's what that was. Because the doctor at the time just said, oh, you're depressed, and gave me a prescription for Paxil. I've never taken medication in my life. I was, just turned 29 years old, 12 days after I had my daughter. And I was just like, okay. And I took it and I just felt weird. I felt like my right arm could have been on fire and I'd have
Mm-hmm.
been like, look, my arm is on fire. And I
Oh
didn't like
gosh.
that. So
Yeah.
I stopped, but there was no education. There was no concern for my like emotional well-being. So yeah, it's hard.
It's yeah. And I noticed, I mean, I thought with my daughter, like everything that was happening was normal, even though like I knew it kind of wasn't because I was
Mhm.
like, well, I see all these other moms doing all this stuff. Like I couldn't even get like out of a robe. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
maybe it's just normal because I'm so tired. But then with my son, I had a totally different experience. And I was like, taking him, we were on the beach when he was like 2.5 weeks old. Like it
Yeah.
was just like a totally different and it's kind of like sometimes in retrospect, but like there's no one there immediately to help you, which is really, really scary and sad for so many people.
Yeah, and then my mom came and my grandma came and stayed with me the first couple of
Hmm.
weeks, and that was amazing to have that support. But my body was going through so many things. I just felt like an alien had taken
Yeah.
over my body, and I just really didn't. But you keep going because
Right.
you're a parent and you have the responsibility of this little being now, and so you brush off everything, and you are the last person on the list, and you just forge ahead and do what you have to do. I mean, really, survival mode for
Yeah,
all of
for
us,
sure.
in those that postpartum period for sure.
Yeah, that was a term I never heard before I went to my first doctor's appointment. They're like, you're just in survival mode. I'm like, what? Like, nobody
Yeah,
talked to me about that. What do you
yeah.
mean?
I didn't even know. I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, was not aware of that term at the
Yeah.
time either.
So what do you think your parenting style is?
So I would say my parenting style with my daughter, I feel like I was just like going with the flow, kind of taking things as they came. And I feel like because of that, the way that I support parents now, I've gotten really involved in the last 8 years. I'm a huge advocate of respectful and responsive care.
Mm,
Caring for my baby, like in the beginning, I really did use that. I really adhered to what she needed and what she wanted, really catered. I was just like, I was like giving her this carte blanche service, every day. So, but when, they get older, you question, and, there's no guidebook on how to parent perfectly. As a matter of fact, I don't think there
yeah.
is any
Yeah.
such thing as perfect parenting at all.
No.
But definitely, I am a huge advocate of the respectful and responsive care, and also educating families on, caring for your newborn
Hmm.
as a little individual being versus an object. And that's something that I talk about. And you see a lot, like, back in the day, babies were objectified. They were cared for as objects. And we still see that today. It's just a little different. It's
Right.
not as it's not as harsh, but you still see it, and it is really interesting to see how newborns understand, and they are a product of their environment, and they understand your vibe and your tone
Hmm.
and all of the things, and how just communicating with them can really help bridge that wall of not understanding each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a really cool thing that I really practice now, and have been for some time.
I love that. And what's one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
My biggest piece of advice would be don't when it comes to sleep, you don't have to wait until your baby is 4, 5, 6 months to start training them. You can start gently conditioning them from the beginning, setting up healthy sleep habits that will carry them really through the rest of their lives if you're consistent with a bedtime routine. So that's the number one piece of advice that I would give to parents.
And that's going to go right into our next topic, which is what you do. So tell us about your journey into the world of newborn care. Like, how did growing up as the eldest of 10 siblings really shape your approach to infant care? How did you get into all of this?
I feel like in the beginning, I was so young. I definitely didn't appreciate and or have a deep understanding, of course, like I do now. And there's been so much growth, but I was comfortable around children. I was comfortable handling babies. I was comfortable having a lot of children around me and kind of being able to thrive in, I wouldn't say like chaos, but it's loud and there's a lot going on when you have a big family. So I was just always used to that. So I was able to adapt to a lot of different scenarios. And I think that's one of the things that made me so hireable when I started my nanny career, because I could kind of just blend in and I wasn't thrown off by change or routine. I kind of just rolled with the punches. So definitely that start, though, is what definitely gave me, the wherewithal to do this. And would I have chosen it in the beginning as my long career? I didn't know that at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So it is really cool how my journey has come. And it is because of my family upbringing and because I am the eldest of 10, honestly.
So then, how did you transition from being a nanny caregiver to more of a professional in the newborn and infant care? Was there like a pivotal moment, or you just kind of thought this is the next step?
No, actually, I was working as a nanny with a family.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if they went on vacation or something or didn't need me that week, but I ended up getting a call and it was to help with some newborn triplets. And I was like, and it was for overnights. And it was just I don't know, handful of nights.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I just was like, I was in it and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't know this was a thing. I want to do this. Like, I want
Yeah.
to know how I can do more of this. But fast forward, I really didn't know at that time. I don't know if that was a big thing. This was like 1994, 1995. And so over time, then, of course, I, had my own daughter. And I would say maybe when she was in junior high, I started to see little things and advertisements, and I was like, okay, I would love to do this. But I was a single mom, and so I just kind of put it on hold until my daughter graduated high school. And then I had been working with some twins at the time from 4 months to 4 years. They were turning 4 years old and they were going to preschool. I wasn't needed full time. So that's when I really stepped into it fully. It was just the perfect timing, the stars aligned, and I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great little transition.
It really was.
And your philosophy centers on intuitive and responsive care. Could you break
Yes.
down what that means to you and how it really shapes your approach to supporting families?
Sure. I mean, so obviously, I arrive, and it also depends on what capacity. If I'm just, whether I'm there at night or I'm there on call 24/7, or I'm there part time, I'm able to get a read on the baby right away. It takes me usually a couple of nights, faster if I'm there with them 24/7. But regardless, it just takes me a short amount of time to kind of feel them out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say intuitive care, I kind of really look to the baby. I like everything to be baby led as much as possible. So they're letting me know when they're hungry. They're letting me know when they're tired and really cueing into what they're showing me because
Mm-hmm.
babies communicate with you verbally and physically.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't realize that babies are telling you. And sometimes I'll arrive to a home for my shift at night, and they'll be like, oh, the baby has been crying all afternoon, we don't know what's wrong. And they're like, we'd love to watch you handle, because we don't hear the baby crying when you're here very much. And so I will just kind of do my thing. And it's usually just a matter of, I said, well, why don't you show me what you've been doing? And it's not that anybody is doing, no, nobody is ever doing anything wrong. It's just a matter of, you're not doing what the baby wants, or the
Mm-hmm.
baby has a preference. So sometimes the baby is being handled in a way that's too aggressive, or that's upsetting, or even scary to them.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of figuring out how to soothe your baby, what methods work the best, because with all of the methods for soothing, there are only going to be a few that really work for your baby. So, and it just depends, and that can look differently. So, yes, so many things. And I really believe in following a newborn's natural sleep patterns and rhythms, because if you don't interrupt that, that's when you're getting the most solid stretches of sleep from the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And if you interrupt that consistently, that's going to make them, cause them to wake up frequently and kind of being off. But if you can just let them do their thing, of course, in the beginning, you have to wake them. You have
Mm-hmm.
to wake them every 1 to 3 hours to eat. And I say 1 to 3 hours because some babies, maybe they're preemies and they do
Right.
wake up every hour on the hour to eat. But typically it's, 2 to 3 hours. So when developmentally appropriate, but during the day, making sure that they're getting what they need, and you're learning, and also doing a lot of skin to skin and bonding with your baby and communicating with them, because they are going to respond to the sound of your voice. A lot of my babies, they'll be crying, and I'll just walk in the room and just be like, Reese's here. I'm coming to get you, or warming up your bottle, or whatever's happening. And you can hear them start to their cry, their tone starts to de-escalate, and I start to regulate a little bit. So it's a really cool thing.
That's so, yeah, it is. What I mean, I babysat a lot and had my brother was 10 years younger than me. So like, baby, I feel similarly like you kind of just had that natural like but then once you have the baby and you get to that newborn, it's just there's really nothing like watching a baby just need you to like keep them alive to
Yeah.
start to respond and learn who you are.
Uh-huh.
It's such a cool experience, and I love that you get to work like see that so often in your job. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I think something even as simple as, can you imagine laying in your bed and somebody just came and picked you up without saying
Yeah.
anything to you? Like, that's very alarming.
Yeah.
So like just, letting them know, say, I'm gonna pick you up now, we're gonna change your diaper, we're gonna go walk outside or whatever. When you're
Hmm.
handling them, let them know what's going on, because it gives them a sense of security, and fosters trust also.
Yeah. So how does your work at Luxe Baby Custom Care differ from traditional newborn care services? What do you think makes it particularly valuable for new parents?
I think, we all work in a variety variety of ways and in different capacities. So while, as far as the umbrella of newborn care specialist or sleep consultant, technically we kind of all do the same thing,
Hmm.
but not. So we all
Yeah.
have a different approach. And my approach is custom care. I'm here with no judgment. I'm going to show up and do what you need and help you reach your parenting goals, or your goals for the baby, whether it's sleep, whether it's just you getting some rest. But it's so much more than that. We're there at night, and we're making sure that things like we're helping to prevent things like torticollis. We're making sure that the baby is safe.
Hmm.
We're making sure that we're not seeing any underlying or anything to be concerned about. So we're monitoring. It's not just giving bottles or bringing the baby to mom to nurse and changing. Even something as simple as how you're swaddling the baby can make a huge difference. So yes, I just feel like we offer custom care, and we're going to help you there. And that's why I don't have a lot of packages on my website, because I want to hear from the families. I
To
want
see
them to
what,
tell me what they need and how they need it and what that looks like. In some cases, what is their budget, and we can help them get the support that they need and work with them, because I don't need to be in a home for 12 weeks,
right.
to have a baby successfully sleeping through the night. We help families remote, but we also do in person. But I feel like when you're working with somebody who is seasoned and has been doing this for a while, you're going to have faster results.
Yeah. And so let's talk about your approach to gentle sleep conditioning. So you specialize in that. Can you explain like what that entails, how it differs from a more conventional sleep training method?
Yes, I mean, with sleep conditioning, we're just implementing healthy sleep habits from the beginning. We're not waiting for, we're not, you know, we're not giving in to all these bad habits or any habits that we will have to train the baby to not do at 4, 5, 6 months. Because the reality is that it's so much easier if we can just do it in the beginning. It's so gentle. The
Yeah.
baby, you're just working with the baby's natural rhythm. You're just doing gentle little tweaks. And as the baby weans itself from feeds, and that doesn't, again, that's not me forcing, me taking feeds away from the baby. It's the baby letting us know, when they're ready. And we slowly do that and gently do that until they're eventually weaned from all feeds and sleeping through the night. So many parents are waiting or think they have to wait, and they're using, there's a lot of apps, there's a lot of sleep stuff out there. But I don't see a lot of people doing it in a respectful way, in a way that respects the babies, but also respects the parents. It's like, okay, here's the plan, and this is what you got to
Yeah.
follow, regardless of what the baby is doing or how the baby feels
I
or
know.
how you feel. Just do it. And that's just not, it doesn't have to be that way. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be so challenging. Of course, yes, it's a big job, sleep
Right.
conditioning, but it's just so much better than the alternative. And so that's really, I believe in that. It works, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't realize that is what I was doing is sleep conditioning my children, but that is what we did versus the training because I bought a few methods. I bought one of the, typical like this is how your baby should sleep. And I remember
Yeah,
writing out like my daughter's schedule, like, okay, she has to have the bottle at this time, she has to sleep at this time. And then like she would get up like a half an hour later, and I'm like, well, I'm supposed to keep her up until noon. Like that doesn't make
yeah.
any sense for, and so then I ended up like just going based up more off of wake windows. And that was like ever changing for me. And it conditioned her to, you know, stay awake and sleep. But the other stuff was, I was like, this is not, how does anybody follow this? Because like it's so strict rather than having the baby guided by it. And if a baby does sleep, at 9, 12, 3, whatever those times, we're like, that's awesome. But that's not what I feel.
I mean, can it be done? Yes. Does it
Yeah.
work for everybody? No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. And it just, like, again, it doesn't think about what the baby needs. So, what I
Hmm.
love about my approach is, I get on the phone with the family because I want to know if I can help them. We
Right.
need to make sure, everybody wants to talk about sleep and get their baby sleeping, but there are other factors involved that need to be looked at first. Is your baby healthy? Are there any underlying health issues? Is your baby eating sufficiently throughout the day? These are things that make your baby can't sleep without being healthy and eating properly at the end of the
Yeah.
day. It's just impossible. And it's also not, they can't get there because they
Yeah.
have all these other factors that need to happen. So yeah, that's what it's just so great about the custom care. I do a plan that works based off of what the family tells me, what their goals are. I meet the baby and the family where they're at, and then we discuss the plan and make sure, do they want to tweak it? Are they comfortable with it? And then we move forward. And it really is great. Usually by the end of the 2 weeks, the baby is in a way better place and sleeping better, not just at night, but also during the day at naps.
Yeah. So, what would be your biggest piece of advice to offer parents who are feeling overwhelmed in those first few weeks and months?
I mean, we've all been there as parents. And I think for myself, just doing little things that being organized, having everything ready. Like, your recovery is so important when you first get home. And yes, it's so important. Your baby is the number one priority, but you also have to make yourself a priority. And we're not just talking about moms, we're talking about dads, we're talking about all parents. Whether you've birthed the baby or not, because we have families that have adopted, we have families welcoming babies via surrogacy. You still have to take care of yourself physically and mentally. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your baby properly.
And so some parents are scared of the word sleep training or, sleep conditioning. What are some common misconceptions around this program maybe that you can address with parents to make them feel more comfortable? I know, it's baby led
Sure.
but I guess for people who are like, I just want to forever let my baby guide me completely, like, how do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, as a parent, we get to make those choices. So nobody, don't let anybody tell you differently. We all have to do what works for us and our families. But at the end of the day, I get those calls all the time. They'll say, "Oh, we're looking for support, when we bring our baby home, but we don't want to do any sleep training." And I was like, "Well, number one, you can't do any sleep training
Yeah.
prior to that. Really, the recommendation is 6 months, but people do have a misconception. The word sleep training, there's a lot of negativity,
Hmm.
a lot of negative thoughts about that word training. And that's why I try so hard to not use the word train, because it does have a negative connotation for many people, because everybody seems to associate that with automatically cried out
Hmm. Yeah.
methods, and not, and leaving the baby in distress. And not all sleep training is like that. It really just depends on who you're talking to, what methods. That things did get gentler. There's the what is it? Like, you don't have to do like a full on Ferber. There's, controlled, where you do controlled crying or timed crying. I don't believe in doing any kind of crying, because if a baby is crying, they have a need that needs to be met, whether it's physical or emotional. And if you respond to that, it's going to go a lot easier. They're going to be like, "Oh, okay." They're going to
Yeah.
feel good. And then that's going to allow them just to let go and sleep. When something's bothering us and we can't
Right.
sleep and it's just nagging us, and we have to take care of that, or reset our mind, or get up and do something. Either we have to take care of it or we're not able to sleep. And it's no different for a baby.
Yeah. So, how about for parents with multiple children? What are some unique challenges that they face? How do you help them kind of manage the dynamics of caring for a newborn alongside with the siblings?
Yes, a lot of that's very common. Some of my families are new again parents, and some of them have older children, some of them have toddlers. It's a challenging, regardless of how old they are, because you're trying to manage your time and you're trying to figure out how to parent everybody the right way. And you feel there's so much guilt, I think
Hmm.
there's so much parent guilt, period. But when you have another baby coming into the mix and you already have other children or another child, it's very challenging. It's
Hmm.
hard because you can't make everybody happy all of the time. Granted, the baby's needs, baby has to eat, every so many hours. Your child, your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old is gonna have to be put on hold. But there are also moments when you might have to put your baby down and take care of your child, even if it's briefly. I mean, you're only one person. And even if you are, or you have the support of your partner, it's still a challenge because you're trying to navigate this new family dynamic. So I support families. I'm there, obviously. A lot of times I'm in the home doing live-in support, and I'm able, that's a luxury. I'm able to help them. I'm able to support the baby 100%
Right.
when they can't. And that's helpful. But for those of us, and like myself, when I was back having,
Yeah.
as a parent, that wasn't a luxury that I could afford or had. I definitely had support of my family, and I had some sitters sometimes, but it is very challenging because at the end of the day, you're the parent, and all the responsibility falls on your shoulders, and you do wonder if you're doing things right. You do feel bad, but just know that you're doing the best that you can, and that's being a good parent, is doing the
Yeah.
best that you can.
That's great. So what are your goals for Luxe Baby Custom Newborn Care in the future?
Gosh, I'm just so excited. I mean, right now it's just I rebranded fully last year, and I relaunched in December. So it's coming up on a year. And my goal this past year has really been to let people know that, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I do it. And if it aligns with people, which I know that it will, and it does, I'm hoping for my services to, like, people be able to reach out directly through me versus an agency, or just referrals are great, and that's how
Hmm.
I get most of my business, and that's wonderful. But I just would love for my company to generate its own leads, whether it's sleep consulting or your baby hotline or travel support or overnight care. It just would be, that's my goal for Lex Baby.
That's awesome. Well, you've given us, oh my gosh, so much information. Is there anything that we maybe didn't talk about, or any other insights that you'd like to provide that we haven't covered?
I mean, I think this is a subject that like could go
Yeah,
on and
I know.
on and on
That's what I'm
forever.
like.
But I think one of the main things that I would love to tell your audience is, when it comes to being a new parent or a new again parent, it's so easy to fall into that comparison. And even, maybe your best friend has a baby that's the same age as yours, or
Hmm.
her baby seems to be like a genius and developmentally ahead of the game, and your baby is just like drooling and hanging out on its back all day long. I mean, that's okay. Babies reach milestones at different periods. Obviously, if there's, your baby isn't doing anything, I mean, and it's a concern, you'll talk to your doctor, obviously. But for most of the time, your baby's healthy and active. It's going to reach its milestones at a different time, maybe, than other babies at your baby stage. So just know that, don't fall into that comparison trap, and give yourself grace, but give your baby grace too, because they're doing the best that they can also.
Yeah, that's so true. It's really hard not to compare. I was in like a chat with all babies born around the same time as my daughter, and it was like one would be like, I baby crawled, and then a couple weeks later another one, and then like all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, 11 of them out of the 19 or 20 have crawled. What's happened? And
Yeah,
then the other, it was like really hard not to compare all of that. And
totally.
every baby is fine, and I think in those early stages it's hard to remember that there's so much development in such a short time, but like it feels like forever for a parent. Like 2 weeks seems like forever if, it seems delayed.
Yes, it does. And that's what's so interesting too, is because there's so many transitions in the first year, and you don't, when you're in it, it feels like a lifetime,
It really
but
does.
it really is like, it's just like a week to 3 weeks, so it
Yeah,
it goes so fast.
it
So,
does.
just enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, this was so amazing. You gave us so much information. And hopefully, I can't wait to see your business blossom. And you're just doing so many wonderful things for so many new parents that need the help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. I hope you found as much inspiration and reassurance in Marisa's words as I did. Whether you're a new parent navigating those first precious weeks or an experienced parent looking for some fresh insights, Marisa's intuitive approach to newborn care reminds us of the power of trust, patience, and connection. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at the running wine mom _. And Marisa, where can the listeners find you?
Luxe Baby Care, and that's Luxe Baby Care.
Perfect. And I will link all that. Thank you for joining us today. That was
Thank you
amazing.
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers. And I will be back next Tuesday. Bye. Okay.